My name is Todd Slechta. I'm the Director of Personnel Development for PeopleCare Health Services. And PeopleCare Health Services' mission is to enable individuals to live better by supporting their overall health, dignity, choice, and independence through advocacy, education, and quality services performed with integrity. And now Community Connections is part of that commitment to education and advocacy, seeking to connect our caregivers, clients, and stakeholders with various individuals and organizations throughout the community that may in some way be of support. So we're really glad that you joined us today. Before we get started, we want to remind you that we have muted your microphones so that we don't pick up any inadvertent background noise. However, if you have a question, please type it in the chat box or in the question box, and I'll look for an opportunity to present them to our guest. And you can also use the handy-dandy little raise your hand feature there as well, and we can unmute you and you can ask the question directly. Now, this month's topic of Community Connections is abuse and neglect, its impact, and our responsibility. Our guest is Amy Shiflet, a licensed practical nurse and agency manager of PeopleCare Health Services West Slope office in Delta, Colorado. I've personally known Amy for years, both in her capacity as a caregiver, then as a care coordinator, and now as the agency manager. And Amy's dedication to clients is unmatched, and her experience and expertise make her uniquely qualified to address this topic with us. So with that, Amy, welcome to Community Connections today and in this role. You've sat on the other side listening for a while, so we look forward to hearing what you have to say. I'll turn it over to you now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, and I'm glad that you're here to discuss and learn a little bit more about elder abuse and neglect. Today we're going to talk about elder abuse and neglect. We work with our clients daily. Whether we're a care coordinator, a caregiver, we're interacting with family. Elder abuse goes unseen. It's our job to see it, stop it, and prevent it. I have a short video that I'd like everybody to join in and watch, and then we'll regroup and continue on with our session. Can you hear me now? My muted button was stopped. It was stuck. It wouldn't let me in. So I apologize.
No worries.
For those that were able to see the video, those that came on board during the video, I've been in the healthcare for 25 years as a CNA, an LPN, a care coordinator, now agency manager, and really seeing the numbers that's out there to me is overwhelming, touches my heart because we're in contact with such a large percent of the elderly out in our communities. The next step we're going to talk about is what is elder abuse and where does elder abuse take place? And it's a really good question. I'd like everybody to take just a moment and read the next slide. For those that have completed it, if you have, the one piece that I want everybody to see down at the very bottom is we've seen something go on with a little elderly lady in this clip, and the key question to ourselves is something isn't right. We've noticed the bruises, her skittish behavior. We've known this client or the neighbor for a really long time, but we always want to make sure that when we ask ourselves, something isn't right, that we're looking into that. We're taking the next step. We've identified something, again, isn't right. A portrait of an elder abuse. They're physically frail. They're less able to stand up to bullying or fight back if attacked. They may not see or hear as well. So then their perception, maybe someone at the door they think is coming to deliver Meals on Wheels, isn't that, it's a perpetrator. More and more Americans are challenged with and affected with mental and physical ailments, which compromise them. They're unable to protect their finances. They're unable to protect themselves. They're unable to speak up. Elder abuse tends to take place where the senior lives. Sadly, in America, most often that elder abuse is in the home. Whether it's the family coming in all the time, they live with family members. And it saddens my heart, as I'm sure it does everyone, that the potential perpetrators could be grandchildren, spouses, partners. So as we move on to the next step, I'm open for questions, reflection. I think the one key for all of us to remember is don't second guess your concerns. Elderly abuse can take place anywhere, and it can touch lives of anyone from young to old. And our focus again today is on the elderly. Any questions?
Nothing at this point. I'm not seeing anything come up yet.
All right. So who does elder abuse affect? Who is a potential perpetrator? Who are our victims? In Colorado, more than 4,000 incidents of adult abuse, exploitation, or neglect are reported each year to local county departments of social services and long-term care ombudsmen. Many more go unreported. High-risk adults over the age of 18. So with PeopleCare, we take care of clients from the very small age of 6 months old on. For us here, we had a client that was 102. That's a broad range of people that can be affected by abuse and neglect. Over 70% are over the age of 60 and are physically impaired or have a form of dementia. Some of the contributing factors to put a client more at risk. Are they over-medicated? So we look at substance abuse. Do they have a mental illness diagnosis? Are they bipolar? Or do they have severe major depressive disorders? They're unable to live independently, so someone else is living with them, or they're living in a facility or an assisted living or retirement community. They're isolated. They're lacking that social support out in the community. Maybe they're unable to get out of the home.
Okay, Amy, we do have a question from Stacy Stewart.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Stacy.
Go ahead, Stacy.
There was an incident, Amy, in Pagosa that I did turn in to APS. So when she was questioned, one of our clients by APS and an officer, she told them that she was okay. And we know that she is still mentally being abused and being mistreated by her family members. So what do you do from there if she won't say anything?
Stacey, that's a great question. And as we move through this video and presentation today, you will actually see where we talk about clients don't want the help. So hang on to that question and let's talk about it when we get to that piece, okay?
Okay.
All right. Belief that he or she is helpless. It goes beyond that helpless. They feel like they're a burden, especially if they've lived in their home independently for health reasons, decline in their physical ability to manage their own life independently. They have to move in with children or grandchildren, or maybe it's a brother, or maybe it's a sister. They feel such a heavy burden, and it changes them mentally and emotionally, and then what happens is behaviors come out and they become more at risk for being abused, being neglected. And as we work through the slides here, we'll talk a little bit more about the different forms of abuse. Physical impairment to cognitive impairment. Gender. Women are nearly twice as likely as men to be victims of elder financial abuse. Question would be why? Why women and why that financial piece? Society has raised, especially our geriatric population now, that the men always were accounted for and took care of the financial piece of being head of household, providing for their family, where a female, they're tending to the children, they're tending to the home, they're not dealing with that financial, so it puts them at a greater risk as they become elderly. Because it's known as it's a target for an easy victim. More and more the statistics are showing that there's financial scams, and sadly to say, some of the women of the geriatric generation now, they're help someone. So if they get a scam phone call and they say, we need $500 sent here to help this, the heart of a woman is more likely to use all of their funds that they have for the month because someone called and said we needed help. Older than 60, again, not that abuse stops at a certain age or begins at a certain age, but the older we become in life, the more we become a target, a higher risk. When we go on to talk about perpetrators, sad but true, many seniors around the world are being abused, harmed in some substantial way, often by people who are directly responsible for their care. The little box with the sweet little lady at the bottom, that it states there are 3 international studies found overall rates of abuse of people with dementia by their caregivers ranged from 34 to 62%.
Now, Amy, one person has a question that says, are we seeing more mental or physical abuse among the elderly? Like, so is it more like a more emotional abuse than physical abuse?
It is. The statistics show it's that neglect piece, which ties in with the mental versus physical. The statistics also show in being in the nursing home, we stress the physical end, Physical is more known in a facility versus neglect. Financial, emotional abuse is more centered on in the home. That's a really good question, Todd. But in home settings, it's more of that emotional, mental abuse versus the physical.
Okay.
Reason we're centered on when they talk about the percentage rate for those with dementia, as we all know, we've been touched with whether it's personally someone with dementia or it's someone we've taken care of or we've been a care coordinator for a client with dementia. As we all know, in time, dementia progresses and our clients' cognitive delay, they become more forgetful. They come back to more of that innocent baby-like state. They just want to be loved. They have no control of saying no. And our clients out in, not necessarily our clients, excuse me, but our population of those with dementia are more targeted with abuse, along with the mental illness as well. Very sad. Risk factors among caregivers. Even caregivers in institutional settings can experience stress at levels that lead to elder abuse. A lot of, oh my God, for us at the West Agency, we have a large amount of clients along with caregivers. And stress, if you read the upper box, the risk factors among caregivers, many non-professional caregivers, spouses, adult children, and other relatives and friends find taking care of an elder to be satisfying and enriching, which is very true. We take great pride if we can help a family member or a neighbor or a client that we have get their needs met in their home. But the responsibilities and the demands, they're high. They're high on caregivers. And if we don't take care of our caregivers, physical abuse I don't feel like could lead to, but the lashing out of the elders that we tend to, neglecting, impatient, we can see some of the key words in that top box there, that burnout, impatient, more susceptible to neglecting or lashing out at the elders in their care. I think it's important for all of us to take time and take care of ourselves if we're caregivers and encourage our caregivers to take care of themselves so that they don't victimize our clients. The elder's condition and history can put them at risk for abuse. We've already talked about the illness and the dementia piece. Have they grown up in a history of domestic violence? If someone's grown up in that area and they become in their 70s and 80s and a caregiver comes in and takes care of them and is abusive with them, that client's not going to know any different because they've lived their life. They have that history of domestic violence. It puts them more in that risk category. Then we talk about dementia, and we talked about it on the last piece, that dementia, if they're verbally or physically aggressive due to their diagnosis of dementia, most humans' reaction if someone's verbally hateful to us or physically aggressive to us, we want to react. Sadly to say, someone with dementia is not aware of their behavior, and it's not okay for us to retaliate. Who would have ever thought some of the most common perpetrators in later life to our clients and society in that elderly in the elderly community, spouses, adult children, grandchildren, other family members, and siblings. Statistics, as I was reading up on this information, states that for adult children of a mom or a dad, possibly with dementia, for some of the mindsets, it's I can treat them the way I want to treat them as long as I can get what I want out of it in the end. Financial is one of the highest categories of abuse with children against their parents. Questions?
Nothing at this point.
Okay. So we talk about statistics, if I can say that right. Elders who experienced abuse, even modest abuse, had a 300% higher risk of death when compared to those who had not been abused. We're talking about a very frail person, and then we have someone come in and abuse them. We've taken time off of their precious life, which they may have very little of left. Elder abuse is mostly hidden. For every one case of elder abuse that comes to light, another 23 do not. So if you look there at the top of the screen, of the 17,743 cases reported in the fiscal year of 2015 to 2016, 40% were because of self-neglect. We are seeing in the research is that more and more a client is self-harming themselves versus someone else. Self-neglect, in a nutshell, is they stop taking their medication. Maybe it's they're on treatment for cancer or dialysis. They're tired of going to the doctor, and they've self-neglected. They stopped eating, which is very sad. So I feel fortunate to be a part of PeopleCare because we help promote a healthy lifestyle and quality of life for our clients out in the areas we cover. Another 20% involved exploitation, mostly financial crimes, where people are scammed out of money or have it stolen by family. Again, as we just recently talked, one of the highest financial abuse is from family members towards that elderly.
So, Amy, it looks like we're picking up a theme here. That is it true to say that most perpetrators then are overwhelmingly people we know?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it makes it a little bit of a sticky situation when you're coming in as a caregiver and you have that feeling that abuse is going on and worried about crossing those boundaries. And we're going to talk about that, Todd, just here in a little bit. Yes, absolutely. It's more important. Statistics are that it is someone that an elderly knows that has abused them or is the perpetrator. Down below it talks about in Denver, police received more than double the number of elder abuse reports during the first year of the mandatory reporting, jumping from 551 in the year 14 to 2015, from 184 in 2013 to 2014. It is now mandatory, and we're gonna step onto that here in just a minute and talk a little bit more about mandatory reporting. The numbers continuously rise, and the sad part as the picture shows there, for every 23 do not get reported. In the U.S. alone, more than 500,000 reports of abuse against elderly Americans reach authorities every year, and millions more cases go unreported. Questions? Reflection?
No, seeing none at this point, folks are sort of interjecting those comments that I'm giving you and questions, are people sending them to me and I'm passing them on. So they are interacting that way.
I do want to say that on that last slide, I'm going to back up just a moment. It goes on to say millions more cases go unreported. And so when we look at the reasons why, and as Stacy asked a question, if they're living with family and the family member's abusing them, their first thought is, if I speak, where am I going to go? And so kind of keep that in your mind, that sadly enough, those millions of cases that go unreported continue to live in the abuse, whether it's physical, whether it's neglect, whether it's financial, for one reason: where do I go if I can't be here? Types of elder abuse. Know the signs. A loved one may show signs of decline due to insufficient care, It is easy to confuse this behavior as dementia. Know the differences and be aware of physical elder abuse and neglect. So this is just a small breakdown of different types: physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, financial, victimization, undue influence, neglect, and abandonment. The most common type of elder abuse is neglect. Second most common is physical, and third is financial.
So interesting, Amy. Valerie sharing too, like that she said financial abuse regarding that. My mother received one of the calls you described from a scammer, claiming her grandson caused a car crash and needed bail money. And she said the scammers were very convincing, and that's why they're good at what they do. They're very convincing. So the question Valerie has is, do we discuss that possibility that they may receive this kind of call with our clients, or will that, I'm assuming, I think Valerie's implying here, or will that cause more unnecessary anxiety, or is it a worthwhile sort of anxious conversation to have to at least prep them and make them aware that these kind of scammers will call?
Right. I think it's important to share the awareness. I agree with you too, Todd. If some little 87-year-old lady lives alone, and she may not live in an apartment complex where it's easily she can get a neighbor really quick if need be. Weighing out your options of, do we create more anxiety, or how can we support our elderly in the community, especially those that live alone, but then again those that live husband and wife as well. How can we support them? And so at the end of our video today, we're actually going to talk about a little bit of different pieces where we can support and help prevent abuse of any type for the elderly community. But it is more common, and Valerie's explanation of the grandson got in a bad car wreck, that is one of the most used scams, because if grandma hears on the phone that grandson was in a really bad wreck and in a hospital and needed medicine or needed a surgery and needed the funds to do that, grandma's going to hear that, and she's going to go, I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of my grandson. And it's very sad that there are those people throughout the United States and beyond that come up with these ideas to call our elderly community asking for money, and it's a scam. It breaks my heart. Physical abuse is awful. If you're abused at a younger age, you heal. If you're abused at an elderly age, you may never recover from that. The financial abuse that the elderly endures, they risk losing their home. They're already on a fixed budget. They're living that penny to penny daily. So it's physical abuse and financial abuse probably are the two that hit me the hardest at home, just because they can't recover from the physical and they can't recover for the financial, especially if it's a large amount of money that they're sending to these people that call in with a scam. It's very sad. Know the signs. Abuse of elders takes many different forms, some involving intimidation or threats against the elderly, some involving neglect, others involving financial trickery, as we've been talking about. The most common are defined below. I really like this quote. Elder abuse is a violation of human rights. Very true. And a significant cause of illness, injury, loss of productivity, isolation, and despair. And so true. It is a violation of human rights. And here at PeopleCare, we strive to make sure that all of our clients, that we help them and support them have their rights. Physical abuse. Physical elder abuse is a non-accidental use of force against the elderly person that results in physical pain, injury, or impairment. Such abuse includes not only physical assaults such as hitting or shoving, but the inappropriate use of drugs, restraint, or confinement. Question is, why do we say drugs? Well, if we overdose, give beyond what an elderly needs, we physically harm them, and could risk overdosing enough that that elderly client may pass. Restraints, they took away restraints a long time ago. That doesn't mean that a family member wouldn't try to physically tie down or physically tie them in a wheelchair so that they don't fall anymore. They don't wander in the middle of the night. There's a lot of different ways that restraints once upon a time were used. They state now that even putting a client into the living room and locking their brakes on their wheelchair, knowing that they physically can't unlock those brakes, you've now restrained that client to a place where they can't move because they can't push their wheelchair with their feet. So we look at that as a form of restraint, as well as confinement. Are we keeping our elderlies in their room, in their bed, not assisting them to get up and enjoy the day, even if that's just sitting in the living room, different scenery, watching their favorite TV show or looking out the window? Confinement is considered physical elderly abuse. Here I've listed for you some warning signs. What you're going to see, if you go in to see Mrs. Jones and you notice that the side of her face is black and blue, and you've been there at night when her son's there, he doesn't seem like the friendliest man. She seems very timid and shy to you. She's not wanting to tell you good morning with that big smile. There's a warning sign, and something, again, is not right. So as you review those, take a picture in your mind. If you're going out in the field, know the signs of physical elder abuse. We want to get them addressed sooner than later. Emotional elder abuse. Todd, this is kind of a little bit about what we were talking about before. Intimidation through yelling or threats. A caregiver has to be careful, especially in this area, because we stress, encourage your client to eat, encourage your client to get up and moving. And just the smallest change in our voice, we may not think we're yelling, but to an elderly, they may feel threatened. Humiliation and ridicule, habitual blaming, ignoring the elderly person, isolating, terrorizing or menacing an elderly person. The ignoring is really one of the key ones that we always want to stress to our caregivers out in the field. Whether we think that their request is something that needs to happen right then, that's not our place to determine. If your client needs that glass of water right away and you're in the living room dusting the couch table, then stop what you're doing. Address those needs.
You know, Amy, I want to add to this one. I think there's a subtle emotional abuse here too. I actually had a family situation where I watched caught a couple times where the caregiver, my family member was dependent upon them and for their care and knew it, and they would imply, well, you know, I could always just leave and you could find someone else. Good luck with that. I actually think that is a very insidious and subtle form of emotional abuse, because it's the fear of isolation, it's the fear of abandonment, and they know it.
Right. Well, and with those pieces, the more they're belittled, the more they hear that voice change and where they feel threatened. We'll notice with emotional abuse with our clients, they'll begin to shut down, even with a caregiver that they adore and love and they feel safe with. They will begin to shut down, and those are key signs. If a caregiver is calling you saying, Miss Smith, something's not going on right with her, you know, where she used to greet me every morning and smiling and happy, she's not smiling, she's hanging her head low. Emotional abuse changes a person on the outside, where we can actually see the difference in them. You may not, you know, emotional abuse shows just as much as physical without the black and blue. So here we talk about behavior from the elder mimics dementia, such as rocking, sucking, or mumbling to oneself. I don't know if any of you have ever been bullied, or when you were younger, or if your children have been bullied, and they've been bullied at school enough, and you notice a change in their behavior at home. It's going to be the same thing. So we talk about emotional. It's a form of bullying. And sadly, it happens more than we realize with our elderly community. I mean, it's coming out more and more with our children through school. The bullying is really a big concern in schools across the United States. Emotional abuse for elderly is the same. We think, oh my goodness, how could sexual elder abuse take place? Puts a lump in my throat. To even know that a caregiver or a family member would take advantage of an elderly who has dementia, who has physical limitations. They may be a quadriplegic, they may have Parkinson's, they have no control to be able to push someone aside. And perpetrators that commit such crimes, I will be tactful. But it's very sad to know that this happens. It's not high on the statistic scales, but it does happen. How do we know if an elderly has been sexually abused? Bruises, if we're giving them a bath or we're helping them get dressed and we're noticing bruises around their breasts or the genital areas, that's a key sign. Unexplained vaginal or anal bleeding, we're talking about clients that are 70 and above, 60 and above in age. That's going to be a concern right out of the door, that if there's vaginal bleeding or bleeding blood on their clothing, that's going to be an immediate report to the office, especially because that there, again, is something that's not right. Elder neglect and abandonment by caregivers. Failure to fulfill a caretaking obligation consists more than half of all reported cases of elder abuse. It can be intentional or unintentional based on factors such as ignorance or denial that an elderly charge needs as much care as he or she does. We deal with this every day with PeopleCare. Not the elderly neglect, let me rephrase that, but we're sending caregivers out into the field. Caregivers, you're going out into the field. And again, I spoke just a few minutes before, it's not our place to determine if Miss Jones wants a big lunch or a little lunch. If she requests a big one, but all last week she ate a little one, we want to fulfill their needs. If we're questioning that they don't need what we're providing, and we're not giving them what they need, that is a form of elder neglect. Taking away things from them that they have the right to have is a form of neglect. Some of the warning signs. We look at weight loss, malnutrition, dehydration, physical problems such as bed sores. Why bed sores? Again, if they're being left in bed, they have the ability to get out. We're putting them at risk. We're neglecting them physically, not just mentally or emotionally. Are they left dirty or unbathed? It goes back to that skin breakdown. Are their living conditions good? And of course, these pieces are things that you're going to see out in the field. And remind yourself, you're not judging if a home is dirty. You're concerned that things aren't getting done or they're being neglected, or maybe the care plan says that the family's going to do all the house cleaning because they like it a certain way, but every time you go back, the home is dirty, there's dishes piling up in the sink, the sheets haven't been changed. If you're seeing those things, I encourage everybody, report those and let us walk through. Is it the accurate reporting, or is it because maybe they need the help now, where before the family said, nope, we're going to clean the home ourselves. Unsafe living conditions. Even if it's the landlord's responsibility, it's our responsibility to make sure that our clients are set up in a safe home. We want to support and educate and provide them with a good place to live. So take good note of the neglect. Financial. This involves unauthorized use of an elderly person's funds or property, either by a caregiver or an outside scam artist. Leads into family as well, where our position is that we really support, push, educate our caregivers to not borrow money from clients, not put your personal hardships upon your client's shoulders, because they're gonna want to help you. That's who they are, because you're helping them. That's a form of financial exploitation. That's a form of financial abuse if you're taking your money from your client, even though they've said, I'll give you $20 for gas. As you can see, it lists different things: engage in identity theft, forge the elderly signature, steal cash, income checks, and household goods. Announcement of a prize that the elderly person has won but must pay money to claim. If you're in the home and you're providing services for the day and your client says, hey, look at this piece of mail. If I send them $500, I'm going to get $10,000. Encourage your client not to. Contact a family member. Contact the office. Some of the signs. Significant withdrawals from the elderly's account. Of course, we don't have authorization to look at our clients' bank statements and bank accounts, so we definitely wouldn't have that area. It's more what you're going to hear from your client. A prime example, we have a client that's always concerned that the grandson's taking money from him. Luckily, we have an APS worker, and she gets updated on all that information. But that's a lot of what you're going to hear when you're out in the field, is that they're going to voice to you their concern their kids are taking their money and shouldn't be. Changes in wills, power of attorneys, items missing, helping your clients stay on top of where they keep a wallet is important. Making sure that you don't see a lot of strangers coming in and out of the client's home is always a good indicator. Maybe something's going on and putting our clients at risk financially. Healthcare fraud and abuse. This is another one that we work with quite a bit. We're always telling our caregivers, do not have your clients sign a blank timesheet. We're always telling our clients, don't ever sign a blank timesheet. Overcharging and double billing of medical care or services, not providing health care but charging for it. So we turn in a timesheet, we give it to the client, it doesn't have any tasks on it. Client might have a little beginning signs of dementia. They sign it, and then the caregiver fills that timesheet out however they see fit, maybe more than what they did, or maybe more hours in the home that they actually weren't in the home physically. That's not providing that health care and charging for it. Over-medicating or under-medicating. We'll bridge into that here in a minute. Duplicate billings, evidence of over-medication or under-medication. So medical fraud or abuse warning signs, these are keys to look at as well, and that continuously training staff and training and working with clients to make sure they're paying attention to what their caregivers are doing, making sure that the timesheet looks right. Making sure medications are counted for. Medicaid anymore, if they've ran out before the date it's to be filled, Medicaid will not pay for it. But sadly to say, there are scam artists out there that can find a way to get more medication even if the prescription's not due to be filled. At first, you might not recognize or take seriously signs of elder abuse. They may appear to be symptoms of dementia and signs of the elderly person's frailty, or caregivers may explain them to you that way. In fact, many of the signs and symptoms of elder abuse do not overlap with symptoms of mental deterioration, but that doesn't mean you should dismiss them on the caregiver's say-so. So just a little bit of breakdown of the physical neglect, psychological, and financial. Any questions or reflections for me?
You know what, Nick from Pueblo just said that the Pueblo police officers have told the elderly clients not carry large purses, to downsize to a change purse or a small wallet, because larger purses imply they're carrying something of value and therefore makes them more of a target. So just little practical ways that we can encourage folks to think when they're out and about. And then also to let you know, Amy, we've got sort of the 7-minute warning here because we promised people we would have them out by 2.
All right.
But yeah, so Nick shared that little story. Thanks, Nick.
Okay, thanks, Nick. All right, reporting elder abuse. I'm going to not go too fast, but one of the key points in reporting elder abuse is it's your responsibility to report. Colorado law was established in 2014. Mandatory reporters include healthcare professionals, pharmacists, psychologists, mental health care providers, social workers, and so forth. It is your job as a healthcare professional, as a caregiver, as a care coordinator to report. Give you a brief to look over that. If we don't report and something is going on, imagine how you would feel if Miss Jones got beat up by the 3rd time by her son and ended up in the hospital and never regained consciousness. It's okay to report even if you're not sure it's 100% true. What if I'm not sure there's elder abuse or neglect? It is better to be safe than sorry. The first thing you can do is reach out to the person and let them know you want to help them. The professional staff at APS, every county has it, can determine if what you suspect is elder abuse or neglect is in fact elder abuse and neglect. It's not interfering in another person's life, and that's a really big key. A lot of times we don't want to report because we're worried that our client's going to get angry at us. Always remember, it's better to report than have something really severe happen or the abuse continue. If you are an elder who is being abused, neglected, or exploited, tell at least one person. So it goes on to what we can encourage the elderly community. And as we work with children too, it's okay to say you're concerned about a kiddo client possibly being neglected by the family. And then of course we would talk to CPS. Try to be specific as you can when you're reporting and giving your description. Stacy, here's the piece we were talking about. Understanding the elder does have the right to refuse services. A lot of times they're not going to talk about it. They're going to have police come over and investigate, and they're not going to tell them what they told you out of fear. They're going to lose where they live. Their family is going to be mad at them forever. They may lose financial stability. Keep your eyes and ears open. If you see future incidences of abuse, continue to call and report them. So if it continues, if the first call didn't do any good, they found it unfounded, continue to call, continue to report. And eventually, the goal is that it will stop. If there's pictures, talk to your care coordinator. If there's bruises, talk to your care coordinator. We're here to support as well if you're the one putting the report out. Where do I report elder abuse or neglect? Report to, of course, dial 911, APS, which would be the responsibility of the care coordinators. You can contact your local police, but it needs to be reported within 24 hours. Questions, comments?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. I'm trying to not go too fast, so I'm hoping you're reading as we go. How do we talk to a potential victim? I really like this quote. Empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. And when we're talking to these victims out there that we're concerned and we want to help protect them, this is really a good way to put it. How do we talk to the person you think is abused or neglect? You've got to establish that trust. Don't have to have a lot of details, but as much as they're willing to share with you, take note of it. And then don't just get up and leave. Make sure that you continue on with a good, positive conversation, helpful hints. Let them know you care. Be specific. Respect their rights to make their own decisions. One thing we always have to remember is if they become withdrawn from you and you're talking to them about an incident that might have happened at home, make sure you're not pushing them. We definitely don't want our elderly community closing down on us if they are in harm's way. If concerned about an older adult, ask questions, consider strategies to break isolation, focus on strengths, refer to a hotline. They always can talk to their case manager. We can get care coordinators out in the field, and then report if mandated, which it is. Any questions?
None at this time.
Hey, how can we prevent elder abuse? I wish it was that easy, but there are certain things that we can do. Listening to our senior community and their caregivers, intervening when you suspect elder abuse. One thing I can tell everyone is do not step in if you've come into a client's home and son is arguing with mom and becoming physical. I encourage and suggest that everyone step out of the home and immediately call 911. If you ever come into a situation where you are witnessing that abuse, immediately call 911. And then, of course, for our caregivers that are on today, we're making sure we're calling the office right away. Educating others about how to recognize and report elder abuse is always, and of course, what we're doing today. As a caregiver, take care of you. What you can do as a caregiver to prevent elder abuse. And that goes beyond just protecting our client, but taking care of yourself so that you're not on that teeter-totter because you're burnt out, or if you have problems, reach out. I encourage everyone to take care of themselves as well. What can we do as a concerned friend or family member? Again, know the warning signs. Take a look at the elderly's medication. Watch for possible financial abuse. And this is a really good, helpful tip for everybody out there that has moms and dads that maybe live in a assisted living or have caregivers that come into the home. Be aware, know what steps you can take, because our whole ultimate goal is to keep our elderly community safe. Find strength in numbers. Feelings of shame can keep an elder abuse hidden. There again, we want to make sure we're not pushing, but offering that support, letting them know we care. Look for common risk factors for elder abuse in the home. We can't change family dynamics, but we can do our best to report accordingly. The sad part is that a client either doesn't want to speak up or the law doesn't feel like it's substantial. And as much as we might want to fight that, we just have to do our due diligence on our behalf. Prevent elder abuse. Any questions or reflection?
I don't see any, and I think people were sort of asking questions and interjecting along the way. And we've hit the 2 o'clock time, and just out of respect, we want to be mindful of your time and your being with us. So with no other questions here, no other comments, I think that'll bring us to the end of this month's Community Connections, and want to thank all of you who have attended. And Amy, thank you for preparing and leading that today. Folks, we have recorded this presentation, and we will make it available on our website under the Education tab, and you can also find many of our past presentations there as well. The next Community Connections will be Wednesday, August 9th at 1 o'clock, and of course we'll send out invitations via email and voicemail blasts, as well as through our various social media platforms. So be sure to like us on Facebook and watch for other upcoming highlighted events and videos and announcements. So with that, we're going to bring this Community Connections to a close. Thank you all for taking your time this afternoon and for what you do for our clients and caregivers throughout the state. With that, we'll be ending the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.